Thank you for joining me for the 12th episode of the Doc Talk with Liz podcast. Our guest today is Dr. Tomas Garzon-Muvdi. Dr. Muvdi is a neurosurgeon at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center. In this episode, we discuss his journey into neurosurgery, his research, and how he manages a work-life balance. We also talk about glioblastoma, approaching a neurosurgery, and patient-centered care. Hello, Dr. Garzon-Muvdi. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Lizzie.
Yes, absolutely. So I know that you're a neurosurgeon right now in Texas. But first, I wanted you to kind of talk about your journey into medicine, like not necessarily straight into neurosurgery, but like everything that kind of led you to like just going into medicine in general.
Yeah, so I think, and I don't remember this, ever since I was a little kid, I would say that I wanted to be a neurosurgeon in Harvard, and I missed by a lot of miles, but then I forgot about that idea, and I went through, elementary school, middle school, high school, and I was really, really good at math. And so in Mexico, you have to decide what you want to do right out of high school. You don't go to college. Oh, by the way, I'm from Mexico. And so in high school, I used to go to the math Olympics and all this stuff, and I really liked math, and I was thinking of being an engineer, but there was something boring about math that I thought I needed a little bit more of a challenge than math, and so I decided to make the leap to medicine, and always I've been interested in biology and the human body and helping people more than anything. And so then I went to medical school, and so I lived in the north of Mexico, and then I looked up all the medical schools, and I applied to only one medical school, which is a government school that was the first one. It always ranked the first in the national exams and national rankings. And so I went, and it was a little bit difficult because they didn't want people from out of state applying to that school. But I don't even remember what I did, but I ended up applying, taking the exam, and I remember I was number 12 ranked exam.
Oh,
which,
wow. Oh my.
Yes. And I was really excited because it was a very difficult school to get in, and I got in, and suddenly at 17, I am moving out of my house to go to medical school. And my parents, they supported me all the way. I mean this when I say this. Everything my parents did was geared to they wanted us to have a better opportunity than they did. And so, and really we did. And so then I went to medical school, and, I wanted to do something difficult that was challenging and that allowed for me to do research. And so in the last year of medical school, you have two options. You can either go and do social service, which means that you go to a rural clinic and take care of people in rural places that don't have access to medicine. Or if you're part of the top 5% of the class, then they allow you to do a full year doing research, whether that's clinical research or basic science research, if you find a mentor. And I found a mentor who's a nephrologist. His name is Gerardo Gamba. And he has a nephrology lab studying ion co-transporters and the regulation mechanisms in the kidney. So I went there, I spent the year with him, and I said, Dr. Gamba, I really need to continue this and be a physician, he says. And he said, you won't be able to do it well in Mexico. And he's probably one of the only examples that can do it in Mexico. Mm-hmm. And so he connected me to one of his colleagues in Ohio, and there I went, doing a master's in neuroscience to Ohio. Spent 2 years doing neuroscience research in primary sensory neurons, studying the same transporters that I studied with Dr. Gamba.
Oh, wow.
But I knew that I wanted to do neurosurgery. And so what I did in Mexico, if you want a letter of recommendation, you just call somebody up. They may know you or they may not know you. And so they give you a 3-line letter saying, oh, he's good for the job. And so I said, I need to find someone like that. And I'm looking through the web, and I see a Mexican dude Alfredo Quiñones at Johns Hopkins. And I'm like, I'm gonna hit him up for a letter. And so I emailed him asking for advice to get into residency. And he said, why don't you come to my lab and visit me for a couple of weeks? And then, but I didn't ask him for the letter yet. Right. And so I got there and I saw medical students from Johns Hopkins working their butts off. And I felt ashamed, so I didn't ask for the letter. But I don't know, he must have seen something in me, or I must have communicated something to him. But on one of the drives in the afternoon from Bayview Hospital, which is a satellite hospital, to the main campus, he said, he goes like this, he has this pose that he loves. He goes, Tomas, what do you think about coming to work for me for a couple of years, and then we'll find ways to get you into residency? And I said, okay. Wow. So I think that was my big break in luck. And so I finished my master's, joined his lab for a 3-year postdoctoral fellowship studying brain tumor stem cell migration and tumor biology. And we had some really nice projects that I'm still passionate about. And then we got federal funding using those projects with Dr. Quiñones' lab. And I also work with Dr. Rafael Tamargo and Dr. Henry Brem. And then came the time to apply for neurosurgery. And I applied to 94 places, I think I remember. Goodness. Yeah, 2/3 of them did not reply back saying whether I get an interview or not. Most of the other ones that replied said no, and I got 6 interviews to go to programs. Most American students get 20-some interviews, and they have to turn interviews down. And so, but I got really good interviews. I got Hopkins, Stanford, UCSD with Dr. Carter.
Wow.
Yeah, I got Thomas Jefferson University, Rochester, New York, and UCLA. So really good interviews.
Yeah.
And so I got lucky and ended up at Hopkins, and then I did my residency there, worked again in the lab doing brain tumor immunotherapy research. And then I did a separate fellowship year where I trained specifically in skull-based tumor surgery. And now here I am in Texas, doing skull-based tumors and anything that I can do to help people with.
Awesome. So actually I have a question. So you said that in Mexico, you just go like straight from high school to medical school.
Yeah.
Correct? So what was the exam that you had to take? Was it like similar to the MCAT kind of, or do you think?
I guess you could compare it to the MCAT, but it has stuff that is from Mexico, like the history of that medical school.
Oh, I see.
A lot of anatomy and biology. So it's not quite like the MCAT. It does have math and all that stuff, but it has other nuanced stuff. It was 600 questions, and it lasted 2 days, the exam.
Oh my
I remember
gosh,
that day
2
perfectly.
days?
Yeah, me and my father went to San Luis, and we got there at 3 a.m. He went and dropped me off at 6 a.m. at the exam. And then he just spent the whole day in a cafeteria nearby. And I just came out and I said, we're done. Let's go back.
Wow, that's crazy. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So since you entered medical school straight from high school, and then I guess it was a 4-year program in Mexico still, right?
No, so medical school in Mexico is a 7-year program.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so you start, and a couple of differences with medical school here is that, for example, anatomy class there lasts for a whole year. Neuroanatomy itself is 2 months by itself. And some schools here have a few weeks of anatomy, 7 to 14 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And the other advantage is that you don't have to pay student loans because it's a government university.
Oh, wow. That's nice.
They gave me $300 a year. So it was pretty good.
Yeah, that does sound nice. I was going to say.
Yeah.
I feel like, do you think that it would be an advantage kind of for like to have more time to go over those topics? But I guess maybe not if you're entering straight from high school, right? Because undergrad kind of prepares you for medical school in the United States.
Well, there's 2 things. I think going straight to medical school gives you time to focus. It's a little bit hard because you're more mature when when you're 17 compared to when you're 22.
Right.
But at least in my mind, you're focusing on medicine. Why are you going to take other studies that are not related to medicine? There is some advantage to knowing more about culture and history and all those other things. So, for example, one thing that I wish I knew more about would be coding, but I'm gonna rely on you to teach me that.
Okay.
But and so I didn't learn any of that, and so that's one of the things that you don't get in Mexico. But we do get very well trained in medicine, and I would say Mexican doctors are second to none.
Yeah, definitely. So like also kind of going off this, like mentioning your research and stuff, I just want to clarify for like anybody that's going to be listening, you can like just have an MD and still do research and like do things like as a doctor in a hospital, right?
100%. So and that's another thing. If I had to do it over again, I would apply for an MD PhD program, because I put in the 5 years of research before residency, and so it'd be nice to have PhD next to my name.
Right.
But that being said, I feel competent to do research just with an MD. I did a master's too. That was all bench research, and so yeah. Now, whether the PhD gives you an advantage or not, I think it does, because you have formal training. But for people who really are passionate about this, you'll find a way to find an answer to whatever question you're looking for.
Right, definitely. And
yeah,
if I can ask, do you think that since you do research and like neurosurgery, do you like one more than the other, or do you think that you like them both equally?
I like them both equally. I'll tell you why. Because I think that as a neurosurgeon, no one knows brain tumors better than we do.
Right.
Nobody's seen them in person and taken them out and see how they invade important structures. And then nobody can put that together with what we see in the laboratory and really identify problems.
Right.
There's a lot of researchers that do have very interesting questions and are doing excellent work, but not even them who may be, very important in their field. I don't think they understand brain tumors like we neurosurgeons do.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, can I ask, what kind of brain tumors do you like kind of research or?
Yeah, so I do a lot of research on glioblastoma, which is a very aggressive brain tumor that comes from the brain.
Right.
Other research opportunities, the other part of my research is on skull-based tumors like meningiomas that can be very aggressive as well. Most of them are benign, but the really aggressive ones are just as bad as glioblastomas. And then brain metastases are also another interesting type of brain tumor that come from cancer outside of the brain. And so those are also interesting in the way that they come up from outside the brain and what makes them go there and how to treat them better. So any brain tumor for that matter is very, very interesting to me, but the main ones are pituitary and skull-based tumors and glioblastoma.
Gotcha. To summarize, in the first part of this podcast interview, Dr. Garzon-Muvdi mentioned that he has wanted to be a neurosurgeon since he was little. He was always good at math, but wanted more of a challenge, so decided to focus on medicine. He went to the top medical school in Mexico after taking the entrance exam and scoring very high on it. Dr. Garzon-Muvdi contributes much of his success to his parents, who always supported him in everything he did. At the end of medical school, he made the decision to do research. He started in Mexico and eventually came to Ohio to study primary sensory neurons. After getting a master's in neuroscience, he found a professor of Hopkins to ask for a letter of recommendation. He ended up working in his lab for a few years to study tumor biology before going to residency. Lastly, Dr. Garzon-Muvdi ended up doing his residency at Johns Hopkins. With this experience, he is still able to do research while still doing neurosurgery. He enjoys how research and neurosurgery relate to each other. And kind of talking about glioblastoma a little bit more, can you just kind of walk through like the cells that those arise from, maybe in the brain, like how glioblastomas arise?
Yeah, so if I knew which cell gives origin to glioblastoma, I'd be a billionaire. But there are many theories. The theory that I I'm biased towards is the theory that glioblastomas come from a stem cell population that lives all through throughout life.
Mm.
And so some of my colleagues have shown that there's stem cells in the human brain, even at later stages in life. They are located in the subventricular zone, which is a little zone around the ventricles that carries all the spinal fluid. And there's also stem cell-like cells in the hippocampus, which is one of the structures that gives us ability to remember things. And so I think it comes from stem cells, and these stem cells have something that starts going wrong with them, and they start proliferating. And that's why they're so difficult to treat, because they are stem cells. They are very able to change into multiple different cells and different populations. And so with glioblastoma specifically, they are very heterogeneous tumors that have well-differentiated cells and non-differentiated cells. And they're very smart in the way that they recruit immune cells. And immune cells make up about 40 to 50% of these tumors, which is insane if you think about that.
Wow. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, they're called myeloid cells, and they become myeloid-derived suppressor cells. And so those are the ones that make the immune response dormant when a brain tumor ensues.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah, that is definitely really interesting. I actually didn't realize that like the tumor is made up of that many immune cells. I mean, like that's actually kind of shocking, to be honest.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah,
it's kind of scary because this tumor is so intelligent that it can subvert our immune system and our own cells and hijack all the defense mechanisms to keep growing, and they are relentless.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you are those really mainly treated by surgery, or do you like start off with chemo or radiation or something?
Yeah, so the mainstay of treatment today is surgery with maximal safe resection, followed by radiation and chemotherapy. And the radiation and chemotherapy are concomitant, so they are at the same time. That being said, surgery is not a cure for these tumors. It never is, it never will be. And the reason for that is that these cells migrate into normal brain, and whether I resect the whole tumor or I resect more than what the tumor is, it 100% of the time keeps coming back.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And so that is one of my objectives, to see what can I do to make these cells migrate less into human brain.
I see.
And that way you can potentially take them out safer. There are studies that show that by the time one of our glioblastoma patient passes away,
right,
there are tumor cells infiltrating all the way down to the brainstem, even though the tumor might be up here.
Oh wow!
And there's another study. There's another study from 1950s by Dr. Walter Dandy, where he was very aggressive at that time. And if he had found a brain tumor on one side of the brain, he would take the whole half of the brain, and the patients would still die from tumor on the other side of the brain.
Oh wow!
Granted, in those times they didn't have MRI, and so by the time they found out about the tumor, it was very advanced. But that just tells you about how aggressive these tumors are.
Yeah, definitely. And I have another question for you about like surgery, kind of like with what you do. So what are you like thinking to yourself when you're doing a neurosurgery? Like I don't know, that kind of just popped into my head. Like, what do you think to yourself?
Yeah, so I always think I'm very focused about the tumor and knowing the anatomy around it and see what I'm going to do to get it out safely. I also think about the patient. I think about the patient's family. And I think how whatever I do in surgery will affect his or her life.
Right.
And so you don't want to do anything that affects their life negatively, but you also want to get the best possible resection of the tumor so that also improves their outcome.
Right.
And I think of you can think of many things, and when you're working around the carotid or the optic nerves or the motor cortex, you're always nervous. But I think that those nerves and that fear really makes a surgeon better.
Right.
I think that fearless surgeons are dangerous. That doesn't mean that someone with a lot of experience, that may mean that they don't have any fear, but they've been through everything, and so experience is very valuable. But I'm only 2 years out from my training, and even though it's a 8-year-long training, there's things that I still don't know and learn every day with my patients.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And when, like, I don't know if there's an average for this, because I imagine that it like fluctuates quite a bit depending on the patient and the tumor like in question. But do you have like the longest surgery that you have ever done, or like a shorter surgery? Like how long do these like last? Yeah.
So the longest surgery that I've ever done was during residency.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a tumor that comes from the olfactory fibers in the nose.
Oh, wow.
And it invaded the nose, invaded one eye.
Oh, wow.
Invaded into the brain. So this patient had a very large surgery, including neck dissection done by the ENT folks, endoscopic resection of the tumor, endoscopic evaluation of the orbit, had an open transfacial approach to get some of the tumor out that was touching the eye. And then we also did an anterior skull base approach to remove the tumor that was invading into the brain. And that surgery took 28 hours.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. So during those surgeries, are you like in the operating room the entire time, or do you like leave? Or like,
yeah, so you can take breaks of 5-10 minutes. Those surgeries are probably my favorite surgeries because it involves working with other surgeons.
Yeah.
And so you know, the patient is always well taken care of, as either the neurosurgeons or the head and neck surgeons are working on the patient. And so when they're under the work of the neurosurgery people, you know, we're there. And when we switch off to do another part of the procedure, then the head and neck people are there. And so it's like a teamwork approach that I love.
Yeah, that sounds very nice, like with collaborating with other specialties kind of, and like everybody works together. Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. So I imagine that, like, just based off what we've talked about so far, that this can be a very time-consuming career kind of to choose, like medicine in general, but especially like neurosurgery, I feel like would be very time intensive. So what do you do, like, I know that you have a family and you have kids, a wife. So is it like, how do you make sure that you manage your time, like with a work-life balance, to be able to, you know?
Yeah. So work-life balance is a little bit difficult to define in my case, because I you know, I'm going to take this from one of my mentors, Dr. Tomas would say, there's people that work to live, and there's people that live to work.
Right.
And so I think I'm one of those that lives to work. I love working in what I do. And so there's another saying that says that if you work in what you love, you don't work a day in your life, or something like that.
Right.
Maybe inaccurately translated, but I take my life as my work, and then my family is part of my life, and I do everything possible to spend a lot of time with them. And I do spend a lot of time with them. And so when I'm writing a grant or reviewing a paper or doing something, I try to do it when the kids are in bed.
Okay. So how do you get enough sleep?
I don't know. I used to sleep a lot when I was your age, but I think I filled my tank back then.
Oh,
but yeah, ever since I started residency, I wake up at 5:30 or 6, right before the alarm goes off, and that's most of the time. And then other things that I do when the kids go to bed is I like to read or watch movies, and I do that till I fall asleep.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite like movie?
Yes, all the Avengers movies.
Oh, you like a bit? Okay.
Yes, I know the lines.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
No, but there's different types of movies. I like those. I really like documentaries and historical documentaries particularly.
Yeah, definitely. That's nice. And then I guess since you said that, like, you're kind of say that you like live to work, but you also like make time for your family and all of these things. But do you have like hobbies? Like, I think you said like books and movies and stuff, but like cooking or anything like that? Or do you think like your wife does a lot of cooking?
Yeah, she does a lot of cooking. She works harder than I do, I think, with the kids.
Oh
And she also
yeah.
has a full-time job of she's a research editor.
Oh wow.
But I also love cooking, and I have a 3D printer that I use to print chassis of remote control cars,
Oh
and I
wow.
try to
That sounds
build them.
awesome.
And yeah, that, those are a few things that I like to do. I like building IKEA furniture.
Interesting.
No, I don't. My wife always makes fun of me. She like, I'm building the thing, and she's like, that thing is backwards. And I'm about to put the last screw, and I realize that it's backwards. I'm like,
Why?
no, but I don't know. I just enjoy things that make you focused.
Yeah,
Anything that it is.
definitely. So when in your like timeline did you get married? Was it like when you were in Mexico or the United States?
No, so I met my wife at the brain tumor lab. She
Oh.
was rotating. She was a rotating PhD student, and she saw me and she fell in love immediately. No, but I met her before residency. I met her before residency, and then we got married in my third year of residency.
Oh, okay.
And then
Gotcha.
and we had our kids at my fifth year of residency. And yeah, that's the timeline.
Awesome. Gotcha.
They turned 6 today.
Oh, really? Oh my goodness. What? We could have rescheduled this. We just have
No,
to do it.
they're
Wait, so
upstairs playing.
you have twins? Right.
I have twins and a 2-year-old.
Oh, okay. I see. That's nice. And they're at the playground right now having fun for their birthday.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome.
We got him a telescope. They wanted a telescope. So we got him a telescope to look at the planets.
Awesome. That's good.
Yeah.
Start them out young, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And then they're gonna go to Code Ninjas.
Okay, gotcha. Good. They should know that. I feel like coding is such a big thing now. Like everything that you want to do, if you know how to code, I feel like you can get a job like anywhere, to be honest.
I know. That's why if I was able to learn, if I had time to learn, I guess I can try to learn with the MIT courses. But
it seems very time consuming though at the same time, right? Like that's why you do these things when you're like kind of younger and have more time maybe. Then like
okay.
you're like a full-time working neurosurgeon. Like how much time do you have?
Yeah.
Not
well,
much.
if there's something we do is we make time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was going to ask you if you have any tips for people like myself that want to go into neurosurgery or like even just the medical profession in general. I'm guessing is one tip to learn how to code, but like maybe there are others as well.
That helps a lot. I think if you want to do research like the research that you've been doing with AI and coding and analyzing big data sets, that is very useful. One tip is to keep your mind open. Obviously, if you want to do medicine, pursue medicine, do biology in college or in high school. Also, reaching out to people to do research and see what the life of a neurosurgeon that does research is like.
Right.
That is very important. But experience things before you make up your mind. You may find that there's some things that you don't want to do, and you may decide to do something else. But the most important thing is to really know what you want to do and be honest with yourself. Don't just do neurosurgery because you think it sounds cool or because it's challenging or because you want to help people with brain tumors. Do neurosurgery, neuro-oncology, do whatever you want, but you have to be happy. Otherwise, you're not going to be passionate about what you do. And most of what drives what I do is my passion to find a solution or find a better outcome or help the patient.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Yeah, I think that's like definitely one of the reasons why I am interested in going into neurosurgery. As I've like told you previously, right? Is because like this is something that I not only want to use to be able to help people in the ways that I've seen, like just in my experiences in like hospitals, but also because it's something that Like I can just sit around all day and like watch those like YouTube neurosurgery videos. You know what I'm talking about? Like they do like those things on YouTube, and I'm just like, this is so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it becomes more awesome when you're able to do it and help a patient yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, and from all those videos, there's also videos that are not good that people don't show of tumors, of surgeries that are difficult to perform or that have a poor outcome. And
Right.
so it's not all glamour. Another thing that I say about neurosurgery is that you may think that neurosurgery is a white collar specialty, where in reality it's a blue collar specialty. People that are neurosurgeons work the hardest.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, I'm definitely sure of that for sure. Yeah, it sounds like very stressful, but like it's worth it if you really love it. Kind of like one of those things.
And you get used to it. You get used to the stress.
Mhm.
And you notice it interacting with other specialties, how they deal with stress. I think neurosurgery has a defined personality.
Mhm.
People can overcome challenges that they have to become neurosurgeons, but there's a defined personality that helps you get through neurosurgery, well.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to ask you, how many years have you been doing neurosurgery?
So counting residency, it's been 10 years, 10
Oh
and a
wow.
half years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But I just finished my training 2.5 years ago. And so
Gotcha.
and it's a process of maturation and honing in your skills and all this stuff. But more than the skill that you need in surgery, a lot of the things what determines a good outcome is patient selection. When you can identify which patient would benefit from what treatment,
Right.
that will prevent you from having complications that you don't want. And there's a lot of that. So it's a very intricate decision process that I enjoy.
And patient selection is kind of something that it's like a skill that you develop over time, you would say, like from practicing.
Yeah, well, from practicing and also from being able to read people's personality. I'll give you an example. How do you select for a patient that can have an awake craniotomy for a tumor in the speech area? And so if you have a patient that, you interact with them and they are calm and they are not stressed about the procedure, they probably get through the procedure pretty well, being awake, being held in with their head being held in place,
right,
with the skull open, exposing the brain, and they're awake and they can do well. But if you pick a patient that is very anxious, which is very understandable, having brain surgery and anxiety,
right,
if you wake them up after you've done the exposure and they can't tolerate those conditions, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So like the psychological effect kind of might influence that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember hearing from one of my colleagues when they woke up his patient was not ready for waking up with all these constraints, and the patient had to be put back to sleep to do the surgery. And I remember one of my patients, who's an engineer, he was the most logical guy, very calm and cool. And he went through this case like a champion. And so there's a lot of things, surgeon characteristics, patient characteristics. And you also have to know what you can do and what you can't do and shouldn't be doing.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, for sure. So I think that I just have like one more question to close off this kind of interview. And it's just like a fun question, like with your from Mexico and stuff. And I was kind of curious, like what your favorite food is. Is it like a Mexican food, or I don't know, like what your favorite food is?
Yeah, so I love food all around. I love tamales from Mexico, tamales.
Yeah.
They are delicious. When I was in Baltimore, we identified a place where they made the best tamales ever.
Really? Oh, wow.
I also like Middle Eastern food a lot. And also, American food is also great. The Americana food, like the stuff that you can get at that you know, I don't want to say brands, but I love burgers and all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, I just want to
What
say,
about you? Which
oh,
is your
me?
favorite food?
My favorite food?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I kind of like Chinese food a little bit, like
Ooh,
chow mein.
yes.
So good. Yeah, I love
And we also have a Thai food place close by that is really good.
Oh yeah, I
So
love
all
that.
food, all food.
Honestly, like Indian, like I like any food, any type of food.
All Indian food.
Yeah.
And so the reason I'm asking is so we can have in lab dinners, we'll have Chinese food for you.
Okay. Awesome. Yes, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll cook sometime. I like to cook, so maybe I can like cook some.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, homemade
Yes.
Chinese food sometime or something.
Oh God. And do you know what I made the other day? I made salmon stir fry. That's pretty good.
Salmon stir fry. Interesting.
Yeah. Someone made salmon in my house and I didn't like the seasoning, so I just broke it off in little flakes and then put it in the rice and all that stuff. It was
Oh,
delicious.
that sounds good actually. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
I've never had salmon in a stir
And then,
fry, but I think maybe it's worth trying.
and then my wife's family and my wife, they're from Peru. And so my wife's mother makes ceviche and all this Peruvian food that is delicious.
Yes,
delicious.
that sounds good. That sounds really. I've heard of ceviche, but I've never had it before. So I don't know.
It's delicious.
It sounds good.
I think it comes from the Japanese. Japanese. There's a lot of Japanese people in Peru, and all their influence in Peruvian cuisine. That's where ceviche comes from, because Japanese people like raw fish and sushi.
Right.
And so that's one thing. And then the other thing about Peru that I haven't visited is that they have probably the best restaurants around the world too.
Really?
They are comparable to European restaurants, and they have a bunch of high-rated restaurants too. So,
wow, we might have to make
food is good.
Make a trip there sometime. I don't know.
Yeah, when COVID stops.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yes, Lizzie.
Definitely. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on today and for talking about your experiences. It's always so nice to talk to you. It's like a lot of fun.
Thank you, Lizzie. Thank you, Lizzie. And I'm always happy to talk to you, being that you're such a driven young woman and you want to get far in life, and you're doing all these extraordinary things. And I wish you success in everything you do. And like I said before, the doors of our lab and our practice are open to you whenever you want.
Thank you very much.
In the last part of this podcast interview, Dr. Garzon-Muvdi talked about his research with glioblastoma and skull-based tumors. While it is currently unknown how glioblastoma arise, he leans toward the theory of them arising from stem cell populations. There are stem cells in the human brain at all stages of life. They are found in the subventricular zone and hippocampus. When doing surgery, he focuses on the tumor and anatomy surrounding it and on the patient's quality of life. For Dr. Garzon-Muvdi, it's difficult to define a work-life balance because he defines himself as someone who lives to work. He spends as much time as possible with his family and enjoys 3D printing and watching movies to relax. Some tips he has are to reach out to people in the field that you want to go into, have experience before making decisions, do what you love, and be honest with yourself. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for future videos. Follow our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for future updates.